All right, welcome back in, everybody, here to the Xfinity Sports Report, your Colorado High School connection. Brian Roth back with you. Of course, I've already seen all those football highlights. Time to break them all down. And to do that, we bring in Marty Cesario in studio with us today. Marty, how are you? Good to see you.
Doing all right.
Fun time of the year, isn't it? I know you have a chance to get up to Monarch yesterday, and let's not start in 4A though. Let's go to 3A.
Right.
Open up with the state championship game coming up. It's going to be Coronado taking on Silver Creek, and how about Silver Creek back in the state championship game for the third year in a row? Of course, defending 3A champs.
Well, they suffered a loss in the regular season, and then people had a question mark about them. But the Raptors, we knew what they were. They're so talented. Watched them all summer and progress through the season. Had that lower seed. It was one of those brackets in 3A where it was very unique, unorthodox, where all these lower seeds were involved. But again, a defending state champion in Silver Creek, Mike Apodaca, has that wide-open offensive game. It's very exciting to watch. He's got a senior leader at the quarterback position in Ben Shabakin and a whole bunch of weapons. I'm not surprised they're there. It's going to be a very fun championship game to watch those guys be back in it again.
Yeah, really an interesting 3A bracket here this year. I mean, it got blown to pieces in week number 1 of the playoffs when Discovery Canyon, the #1 overall seed, got hammered on their home field by Pueblo East. So again, Coronado, how about them? They finished 0-10 just 2 years ago. They'll take on Silver Creek. That game will be up in Longmont. And again, as a reminder, we'll have our cameras there. All right, to 4A, the game you were at, we heard from head coach Todd Miller earlier. How about that Pine Creek defense? I mean, I was shocked. Not that they were able to hang in and win that game, but in the manner that they did it.
Yeah, when you break it down, I mean, you take away Jay McIntyre's 96-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. Pine Creek held that Mo-High offense, which had been scoring 40 a game, putting running clock up on other people, including in the playoffs, without a touchdown. I mean, it was just amazing. And I liked, if you saw the highlight package, Matt List, the linebacker, just flat out said, the coaches brought a game plan. We just executed, and it worked out well. It was a very, very stellar moment for the Pine Creek football program.
You know, it was interesting, even though Monarch lost to Montrose early in the season.
Right.
Again, you mentioned the 7-game win streak. I mean, they have mercy ruled everybody they have faced in that 7-game win streak to get to this point. I think a lot of people around the state really still felt the defending state champs were the team to beat.
Yeah, I think so. Mo-High, has all the parts, and then the signature Phil Bravo offense, and what we saw out there on the football field up there in Lafayette was just amazing. Pine Creek suppressed them, and then what I like too, the adjustment. The Eagles this year, and Coach Miller pointed it out, was the team that beat Mo-High in 2011 to reach the championship game. This one here in 2013, very different. They've got Tommy Lazaro, and they've got some weapons in the pass game. They blew all that off and went run-centric. You watched it flip about the second series in that first quarter, and they just ran the football, and they ran it down the Coyotes' throats, and they did it very, very well to lead to that 21-7 victory.
Yeah, and again, the defense was excellent too. 133 rushing yards for Monarch.
Amazing.
I mean, they held Ethan Marks in check. He only had 54. And again, you're right, it was a rematch of that 2011 semifinals, and Pine Creek's defense was stellar in that game too. They shut out Monarch 2 years ago. 20-0. So Pine Creek punches their ticket to a state championship game for the second time in 3 years. Who would they play? Well, it's going to be Montrose, the #1 seeded Indians. Double overtime victory at Pueblo South, and boy, they go for 2 in the second overtime. It pays off.
I'm not surprised that Coach K. Spear, as I was following it on Twitter immediately after our game up in Lafayette, that he decided, you know what, we drove 220 miles, let's go for it, see what happens. We're kind of a wacky Western Slope team, and they got through. It's an awesome story watching the Indians and what they're doing. They have some great storylines in terms of personnel, even off the field. I love Angelo Youngren. Mike Roca, he's just a beast, number 40, as a running back, complement to what Youngren does. And then that defense, they're kind of a wide-open team in terms of how the game flows with the Indians. That defense does just enough to keep the other team from scoring more points than what that Montrose offense is doing. It's an awesome thing. It's going to be great watching Montrose and Pine Creek play out there.
Yeah, and you had mentioned Angelo Youngren. Again, here is a kid who missed 4 weeks due to a broken collarbone, got him back last week in the quarters, and don't tell me he's not important. I mean, he is a workhorse for him, scored obviously 2 touchdowns in the game, and then had the game-winning 2-point conversion. What can you say about Pueblo South? I mean, they're trying to reach a title game for the really first time in ages, and they went 1-9 last year, Marty. They come back here this year. They had a 10-game win streak going into that game, and nearly punched their ticket to Denver.
And I think they really thought this was the year. I was following them on a very active Facebook page. Credit the Colts for that. You know, they felt this was the year. They had never been in this position where 2 other times in the semifinals. This time it's at Dutch Clark. We all know what a great experience it is to watch football down in Pueblo. Just couldn't get it done that close, right? And, you know, just fell by 1 point because another team took a chance and a risk and decided to go for the win. And that's certainly a great season. Obviously, you know, you don't want consolation prizes, but yeah, you mentioned the turnaround. What South has done for a great football program down there, I think it's something to be commended.
All right, so that sets up the 4A state championship game. Sports Authority Field in Mile High coming up on Saturday, 11 a.m. We're going to have our cameras out at that one. It's going to be Pine Creek and Montrose. Your take on that matchup?
Well, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a wide-open game with the offenses. I think we will see more of the balance that Pine Creek has to offer. Coach Miller and his crew with Lazaro, and boy, watch the things that they can do with those weapons. You know, you got Savage and Coffee, and then Avery Anderson, who's going to be a D1 defensive back at some point in his career, is actually a very, very capable player as a running back. And then Camden Atkins out there, you know, catching passes. He had a big critical pass. I think Pine Creek in our Mohawk game completed 1 pass, but it was deep downfield to Atkins. Great play. I think they'll be wide open. Montrose will complement them in doing that. We may see game in the 40s. If not, it'll be because Pine Creek's defense, just as we saw this past week, dictates the flow of the game and suppresses the Indians. We'll see. It's going to be a very tight, very fun game, and again, all kinds of storylines. You got Black Forest, you got Montrose, Western Slope. Very, very good thing to cover. Yeah, without question. It's going to be a fun one out there, and I think Pine Creek happy to get back to a championship game and happen to know that Valor Christian, they don't play in Class 4A anymore. Of course, Valor knocking off Pine Creek in the 2011 4A state championship. Well, perfect segue. We go to 5A, rematch of that 5A title game from last season. Cherokee Trail and Valor Christian. Valor gets the win, as we saw here on XSR, but you know, Cherokee Trail played them tougher than any in-state team, and I think we all saw that come. We thought Valor would have their hands full. Yeah, and you know how some teams at either the high school or college level, they have a problem with one program and you don't know why? Valor legitimately has a CT problem. And you can see this. The way that game opened up, Evan White, credit him. He's going to be fun to watch up there in Boulder, because my understanding is he came to attack that Valor passing game. 2 interceptions early on, CT was up. You know, eventually Valor, you know, did what Valor does and got everything done. Cherokee Trail has to be proud of themselves, but this Valor team, we've seen it all year long. They are just as good as they have been in the previous 4 years. They have an outstanding program, great coaching, and just some top-notch talent, up to 7 D1 players out there for the football team. Yeah, and that's a game in which, you know, Valor Christian was kind of put in a spot that they haven't been used to here, at least this year in state. Of course, they do have the 1 loss to Bingham, Utah, who, by the way, yesterday won the Utah State Championship. But they're down early in that game. And I think the play of the game was right at the end of that first half. I mean, hey, a fumble, return for a touchdown. All of a sudden, Cherokee Trail played a very nice first half. They led most of the way. All of a sudden, they're trailing going into halftime, and that really kind of turned the tide. And what can you say about Christian McCaffrey? He was outstanding. 3 offensive touchdowns, sealed the game late with a defensive touchdown, went for over 200 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 134 touchdowns in his high school career. So who would Valor Christian take on? Well, to be the #1 seed and the only undefeated team in 5A, it would be Fairview. The Knights get the job done yesterday as well. Yeah, I think it's nice for them. Remember a couple of years ago, they were undefeated, made it to the semis, lost to Grandview in the snow. This time they finished things off, so I think it's kind of nice to see the Knights pull that off, especially because they're a very fun team to watch. It's a great, tight group. All those kids from up there in the South Boulder area have been playing forever, since they were 6 years old, and here they have this offense that's very unique in, you know, in the Denver metro area and along the Front Range. And, you know, Anders Hill, Sam Martin, Cam Frazier had an amazing game. All those kids got it done. So it's kind of nice to see. Happy for Coach McCartney and his crew. And, hey, credit the defense, too. The question has always been, do you have enough defense to hold? And, you know, Carlo Kemp and Bobby Johnson, those guys, the answer is yes, and now they'll be playing on top of the Broncos emblem, you know, not too far from here for the state championship. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Fairview can match some of that team speed and the physical nature
of Valor Christian. 2:30 coming up Saturday, Sports Authority Field at Mile High. Marty, does Fairview have a chance?
Yeah, I think so. I think in terms of schematics in that passing game, they're going to be able to put up some points against Valor, and I think that'll happen early, not too far off of what we saw in the Cherokee Trail game. Then later on, as the coaching staff for Valor figures things out, maybe that starts to happen. Remember, there's a couple of D1 players back there in defensive secondary for Valor, and Marcus Wilson and Eric Lee too. So we'll see if Valor figures it out and then starts to suppress, and then the D line that's always huge for the Eagles starts to get across and maybe disrupts Anders Hill. I'm not sure what Fairview can do defensively against what Valor has to offer, especially recently. We watched in the highlight packages. I remember that quarterfinal game against Ralston Valley. All of a sudden, you got Wilson and Lee playing wide receiver. What are you doing? Throwing wrinkles and twists? They have that kind of talent to offer, and who knows what Coach Sherman and his staff are going to offer offensively to complement the run game with McCaffrey as we go into that title game.
Yeah, and Valor Christian, they've been there, they've done that.
Yes.
It's nothing that is new to them. It'll be a new situation for the Fairview Knights. Marty, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's one of our correspondents here. He's covered high school football all season long for us here on XSR. We'll take a time out. We'll wrap up the program and look ahead. Stay with us here on CET.